official definition of a township. A township would be a previously demarcated area where black people would stay. That would be a township.
Interesting. But
you also get locations in shanty towns.
So would you say that any white people live in that township we just passed through?
That one?
Yeah.
Probably not.
Look at this location. It's hard to believe that people live in these places.
Went to an area that's very, very poor, very poverty-stricken. They say in the red location it houses about 5,000 to 8,000 people, and 85% of that are unemployed. So some pretty extreme poverty, some disease, things like HIV and AIDS and tuberculosis. Just some really impoverished areas, and it's difficult to see, and there are things like that we don't see in the States. Even when we see poor areas in the States, it's not like this. I think living in the States, it's really easy to turn your back to it, to forget about it, to not see it. You know, we see things like that on TV. You know, when you see ads for something like Compassion International, you know, you can adopt a child. They take their video cameras and they show you what it looks like. You know, they show you the way people live in these other countries, but it's easy to separate yourself from that because it's so far away. It's on the other side of the world and you don't actually see it.
It wasn't even so much seeing a couple just, you know, horrible living establishments. It was just how far and deep they go, you know. It wasn't like when we drive to the Delta and you see an old trailer, you know, a kilometer down, another old trailer. I mean, imagine if you take a third of an old trailer with no electricity and then put 1,000 of them wide and 1,000 of them deep.
They're tiny. The houses are actually smaller than my bedroom. And so that was difficult to see. And it also, I mean, it just made me think about how far has the reconciliation process really come in South Africa if the whole system of apartheid actually benefited white South Africans to where that they were able to live in those nice homes, and it relocated black people and colored people and Indians to other communities that were, you know, apparently, obviously very disadvantaged. If that's still happening, then how can you really say that reconciliation has happened here in South Africa, and how can you say that the injustices have ended?
It makes me feel, I think it makes me feel very small, and it makes me feel very powerless, and I just don't know what to do, you know? What can I do? What should I do?
Glass of wine or cup of wine and drink their sorrows away.
That used to be a beer hall. We boycotted them. What was happening? The government will bring beers very, very cheap, so people will become alcoholics.
So the government
supplied very cheap alcohol to the locals, obviously to numb them and to make them less active, because must remember that time there was a political struggle going on, and the main participants were men. So to immobilize and make them more inactive, how about some alcohol? Let's turn into alcoholics and reduce that threat. So it was eventually burned down. 1976, and 1976 was the same year that there was a revolt by youth against the apartheid system, especially education. So it was a consciousness movement, black consciousness, and that was a symbol of the dissatisfaction of the system, burning the place down.
There's a spigot for water. They don't have electricity. They don't have their own plumbing, but they can go and they carry buckets and they go and they get their water from a spigot and they carry it back on their heads. So, you know, we walk down in through these shacks, and the thing that I found most disturbing, you know, besides being that close to the way, I mean, this is their everyday life. This is something that, I don't know, a lot of Americans wouldn't even do when they aren't camping. You know, we have more luxury when we go camping than a lot of these people have in their everyday lives all the time.
And it's such a contrast to spending the weekend with the farmers who had huge amounts of land. You could probably fit 50 homes that you would see in the township in one little area of a farm that we went to this weekend.
But I do have to say that there was one really positive experience of the township tour, and that was seeing the little kids come up to you and they all saw that we had these digital cameras and they knew exactly what they were. They just wanted us to take pictures of them. And so this one little girl, she followed me around for like 15 or 20 minutes, and she would like kind of pull on my arm and she would say, take one more picture, take one more picture. So I have all these pictures of this little girl going, one more picture.
Township tour, you want to talk about where we are?
It's the elite black neighborhood, and in front of you see quite a contrast. Poverty as far as the eye can see. I was actually waiting for this moment so that you guys can see what people in South Africa are also suffering. It's hard for me to believe that people can rise out of these situations, but you get some exceptions.
The townships went on forever, but the graveyards in them went on forever as well, and it was just so sad to see. And you could tell there were so many fresh graves. It was obviously an issue.
The main cause is it's HIV. It just took over the last 15 years or so. People are dying. It's almost become the norm. It's overtaken murders or any other sickness. It is the biggest killer in these areas, and it's become the reality.
My uncle, who was also my guardian, died in February, on 25th. And so my brother collapsed on that day. So they took him to the clinic and treated him, and they found that he had TB. And I was like, no, it can't be. They said I had TB, and now this other doctor is saying that I have HIV. It's not possible. Then they started him on the medicine, but they found out later that he was not actually taking it. And when you miss a step on taking those ARVs, you don't survive. He died in April, I think. Yeah, April 28th. Yeah, and he was only 24.
And what's really sad is that you have nurses who actually provide the medication for HIV to kids out there in the streets who sell them as cocaine, that will sell this medication. So the people who are in need of this don't get access to. Why? Others are busy making money out of this.
Overwhelmingly, that is a black South African disease, and it's very much a lower class black South African disease. Race and class are so tied together.
I used to work at an HIV center, did a counseling and testing there. I worked 5 hours a day, but I'll test more than 4 people positive in one day, which shows that they have the virus. It's really sad because it's mainly the young people. What about their future? What's going to happen? When those people get to the stage when they are really sick, they cannot do anything. They need somebody to feed them. They need somebody to bath them. It's a sad story, especially to see young kids. Just imagine a 9-year-old looking after the whole family. Granny is dying in the family. Mothers move to the cities, and when they come back, they're sick. The 9-year-old has to look after their own parents, watch them die in front of them.
Hello, that's Salah. She really loves those penguins. Look at Salah. They only have one mate for life, which is something that we should be doing. Yes, it's very good. I guess we should learn from the penguins. You only have one partner for the rest of your life to avoid and prevent HIV/AIDS.
One thing that I think we're all interested in is, especially being in South Africa, being in Mississippi, and being in Northern Ireland, is the idea is about, racial reconciliation, religious reconciliation, and how these different societies can reconcile. And the one question that I think definitely needs to be answered, or not answered, but we need to really think about is, what exactly does a reconciled society even look like?
And no one can really answer that. Because if we think about reconciliation as process demands that in some ways we have to know what we're moving to. And if that is a colorless, classless society where people of all races, all religions can coexist in a completely unprejudiced way, I just don't know if that's possible, because we are human beings. We notice otherness. I mean, it is in our nature to recognize the other.
But I think as soon as you sort out, say, something like racial reconciliation, then you have socioeconomic reconciliation that needs to be achieved. And I'm sure as soon as you've done that, then there'll be some strange kind of political reconciliation. So I think true reconciliation is that, it's like Darius Dar said about democracy, it's always still to come. But it's not, doesn't mean we shouldn't work towards it.
But I realized when it comes to reconciliation,